No, anymore is fine.
Thank you everyone for joining us. I am Dr. Shaima Abdel Karim and I'm a lecturer in post-colonial legal theory and critical race studies at University of Birmingham Law School. And I'm honored to be chairing the panel on Ultraviolence. I am joined with Ultraviolence filmmaker Ken Farrow, whose work, including the film Injustice, strikes the audience as not just a documentation of police violence that belongs to certain events, but a narration of ongoing Black death and struggles for justice and freedom. I'm also joined with Deepa Naftali, the cousin of Mickey Powell, who was killed by police in Birmingham. Deepa is founder of community collective Forward Ever UK and the National Mickey Powell Memory Family Fund that provides and documents and compiles resources on death, abuses, violence in police custody, and other injustices and human rights abuses in the UK and internationally as well. I'm also joined with Cora Jang, who is the cousin of Ibrahim Sai, killed by police in London. Her prose and meticulous articulation of the dehumanization of Black people in the film Injustice has made us think of the limitations of legal justice and the need for alternative forms of justice when laws and human rights claims fail us. I'm also joined by Dr. Philip Smith, who is a professor at Columbia University in New York, and also the brother of Trevor Smith, who was killed by the police. And I would like to abuse my power as a chair and start off the discussion by asking what has changed to everyone in the panel from the making of Injustice to Ultraviolence. Would you like to kiss us?
Well, good evening everyone, and thanks for coming. I believe nothing has really changed still. We're still where we left off 20 years ago. There's nothing changed in the sense of the law. The main objective here, for me, in this point of time now, is to make the police accountable for their wrongdoings. And that hasn't been addressed by the political parties, by the chief of police. Nothing is addressed. It's just like our lives don't matter. It's just that, our lives are cheap, In fact, last week, I don't know if you all heard about it, anyone that kills a police officer now will get life. Can you imagine? So what they're saying, you people are very special, and the ones that you kill, they're nothing. Mm-hmm. That's the way I'm seeing it, because we've been campaigning for years, virtually years, to get some accountability, and also for the police to be jailed if they have done a crime. And that's why they're doing it. They're continuing and they continue because they know they're not going to jail. So there's two different laws in this country, and it has to be addressed. And it's going to take something significant right now for this country to wake up and say no more. And that's what I can see it coming. I can feel it coming. Just like maybe the George Floyd of the UK, where everything's on camera, and it's going to go off because everyone's angry still. Because people don't feel like they have, we feel like second-class citizens. That's how we feel. Okay? Sorry, I'll be going.
I 100%, right? There hasn't really been any structural change to how the police work, to how the legal system works, the inquest system, the CPS. They're all kind of in partnership against us. That's how we feel. And we feel like the inquest system is a farce. It's made up. It's a made up product that to make us feel like something's happening. And we've had enough of it. I think the only thing that has changed actually is public opinion. With the recent cases like Sarah Everard, for example, and Dalian Atkinson. For the first time since the case that was mentioned in the film, an officer has gone to prison for the death of someone in custody. So the system itself, There's still a lot more that needs to change. But we are part of that change, we, the public. And because public opinion is beginning to change, as you said, my sister, that is when we will start to see something happen. And my mantra, my motto is always, never ever give up. We all know the story of Nelson Mandela. Spent 2.5 decades in prison. No one ever thought that Nelson would get out, but he did. That was partly because of us, the people internationally, making noise about the injustice of what happened to him and all of the black people and people of colour in South Africa. He came out of prison and he was the president. No one would ever thought that would have happened. So I always say, even though it seems like an uphill battle, we don't care. We will keep doing what we're doing. Our generation, the next generation, the generation after that, it doesn't matter how long it takes. We will not stop.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. In answer to your question, firstly, I echo much of what others have said, but the thing that particularly stuck with me is that the film was made in 2006. We're now in 2021. My brother Trevor was killed in 2019, March 2019. The inquest into his death was concluded 2 weeks ago. So it's still very, very fresh and raw to us as a family. But what really resonated for me was not so much about the system, but about the families and their pain, their heartache, their search for questions and answers. And I thought, here we are, 2021, asking and thinking the very same things as those families many years ago. And there was a particular quote in the film where it spoke about pictures and photos. And it said the photo portrays an image, but it also there's much more behind that photo. And when I think of my brother and, you know, the narrative that has been discussed or spreaded about him, how much of that is individual kind of the same photo, but drawing very, very different conclusions? And to what extent are we really thinking about the families, the loved ones who are affected by these horrendous acts?
Ken, would you like to?
I think I've said a lot in the film already, and I don't want to repeat what's been said, but I think there's been negative things and positive things in the past 20 years, in the past 50 years. When we finished Injustice, that was a 30-year period, and we counted 1,000 deaths. And the film went out in 2001. So 20 years later, we've had 1,000 deaths in the 20-year period, which tells me that the rate of death is increasing. That's just fact. So anyone that thinks there's been an improvement or things are getting better, they're delusional. It's getting worse. It's called ultraviolence because the level of violence in society is increasing. The level of violence that the British state used against its own people and internationally is increasing. So we're living in a much more violent period. If you accept that and you believe that, what's the solution? I think the other big change for me in the past 10 years has been the uprising of youth across the world on issues like Black Lives Matter, on Me Too, on environmentalism. There's intersectionality going on, and a much stronger internationalization as well around issues of Palestine. You could never have had 7-9 billion hits, Free Palestine on TikTok. Now, some people might dismiss social media, but that's a conscious building up of that particular political situation, from a slogan of let's negotiate and the Oslo Accords to from the river to the sea, which goes back to the PLFLP position from the 70s. So there are big changes, political changes. So I'm also optimistic that in the youth, in the young people, and that's why the film takes the role it does. I have to criticize my generation from the failures of the 80s and the 90s. That's just reality. They just have to accept it. But yeah, I think I'm positive. I have a lot of hope in what's going on. I think COVID halted it, but it will never ever stop it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your answers. I would like to open the floor to the audience. If you have any questions, please.
Take this one, take this one.
Well, you can pass that one around.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for this film. It's an honour to watch it. Just a couple of points before the question. I think the film does a great job of debunking a myth that was for so long part of the police narrative, that British police is not as brutal as American police. They're not heavily armed, and the film debunks that so eloquently. The second thing is, of course, the power of language. People do not die in police custody. The police kills people in their custody. Women are not killed. Men kill women on the streets, and the importance of using the active voice. I was also, my heart was tickled to hear the words of Malcolm X and to see his name on the credits, the boogeyman of the white people. A lot of filmmakers shy away from him, and the likes of Fanon as well. Two quick questions. First of all, is there any room for prison abolitionist theory in this discourse? I don't think punitive justice is effective. It hasn't been a deterrent for anything. Is there room for talk about transformative and restorative justice? And my question to the filmmaker, what I found fascinating